And that industrial unrest is right where we will begin our business update with our business editor, Stephen Carroll. Good morning, Stephen.
Hi, Catherine.
And yes, there's been a lot of unrest here in France in recent weeks. Today, things look like they're just going to get worse.
No, and starting first of all with the train network, where a new strike is set to begin later on. That's because of three main unions at the SNCF, national train operator, beginning rolling strikes expected to disrupt train services. It's the 8th day of action on the railways since the beginning of March. This dispute is over changes to working hours for French railway staff. Now, the SNCF says that 60% of high-speed TGV trains will operate, while only around 40% of suburban trains will run and around a third of other intercity services. Paris, too, could be affected from Thursday. That's when the biggest union at the city's transport operator is going on strike, although the French transport minister, speaking on radio this morning, said they're not expecting too much disruption from that.
All right, so a disruption for people who are using public transport. People who've got their own cars also facing a lot of disruption because of the oil refineries being blockaded. My family coming over to France soon with their cars, hoping to spend some time driving around on holiday. I'm sure many other people planning the same thing. Are they going to be disrupted by these oil refinery blockades?
Yes, but not as bad as it was last week. Last week, this was really the big story as we had petrol pumps running out all over the country. There are still, according to the latest figures, which are from yesterday, there are still around 20% of France's filling stations that are short of or completely out of fuel. But that is an improvement on the previous days where that had been up to a third. This is because we've had the blockades removed from outside most oil depots around France, which is helping that oil to circulate again. But 6 of the country's 8 refineries are still on strike, which has meant reduced production from those refineries, of course, filtering into the system and as a result getting to those filling stations. That dispute is over reforms to France's labour code. Of course, we've seen plenty of street protests on that issue as well.
And it seems even the skies aren't safe from industrial action.
That's right. A separate dispute again. Civil aviation staff set to strike. That includes air traffic controllers, I should say, from Friday to Sunday. And that's over negotiations on their working conditions. There's one more meeting happening between unions and management that could avert that strike action today. So we'll see what becomes of that. But at Air France, pilots there have issued notice of strikes of at least 6 days in their pay dispute. The date's yet to be set for those, but one union spokesperson saying they will start in June. OK, we'll take a look now, after all that strike action, about the action of what's happening on the stock markets in trading today. European shares opening up only by a small amount, though it has to be said at the start of the day. Small gains in London and in Frankfurt as well. Shares in the British insurer Alliance Trust are up by over 2% after it emerged that it's in takeover talks with RIT Capital. In Asia today, shares also up after some good economic data from Japan. Also some hopes there that the government will delay a planned sales tax hike. The Nikkei up almost 1%, but the star performer is the Shanghai Composite that's up by over 3%. And one piece of companies news for you as well this morning coming from Volkswagen. Net profits at the German car maker have slumped by 20% in the first 3 months of the year to 2.3 billion euros. That's as it continues to feel effects from the emissions scandal. Last year, it reported net losses of over 1.5 billion euros. In total, it set aside 16 billion to cover the cost of the scandal.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
It certainly is.
It's something else that involves a lot of money. The talks that are continuing over this trade agreement between the European Union and the United States. It's over that TTIP agreement, isn't it, as it's catchily named?
Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Issues right now over food and drink.
That's right. It's been one of the central points of disagreement in discussions here, how to extend the protection of certain food and drink products to the United States. Take, for example, champagne or feta cheese. Both, if made in Europe, must come from specific places. Same rules don't apply in the US, though, and those producers want to sell their goods in the EU. Josh Vardy has more.
It's labelled champagne, but it's not from the Champagne region, nor even from France. France in particular places high importance on the regional names of its products, which are granted the Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée certificate to show them as authentic. Here in the US, however, standards are more lax, meaning that on supermarket shelves, cheaper products carrying the same name sit next to their much more expensive European counterparts. Here at Renault Winery in New Jersey, the owners claim to have been making champagne since the 19th century.
We've been in business now 152 years, and being able to call it champagne is we're grandfathered in. Louis Nicolas Renault came from France, started making champagne here on the East Coast, and we've just been been holding up the tradition ever since.
Europe's insistence on keeping control over the naming of regional specific products has long been a sticking point in trade talks with the US. But US officials recently said they won't budge on this point. They want to increase exports of US-made feta cheese and blueberry champagne. This cheesemaker in Wisconsin makes what they call Parmesan cheese. That means they're not allowed to sell their products on the European market because they're not made in Italy.
There's great cheese made here. There's great cheese made in Europe. What we would love is the opportunity for the consumer to decide what they like.
While the Europeans have been accused of being overprotective, the export value of French wine to the US jumped up 28% last year to 2.6 billion euros.
Why America can't do.
Big issue indeed. Now, this is where I, as a Somerset person, moan about cheddar cheese that's not from the town of Cheddar. This is very important. This is a big issue here in France, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is all across Europe, and there's some around 50, we're told, of these appellations origine contrôlée, as they're called in French, origin issues still very much high on the table at those talks.
All right, and just to finish off, what goes better with cheese than wine? A new attraction for wine lovers opening up today.
Yes, of course, the city of Bordeaux and the region around it, known for wine the world over. The French president is to open the Cité du Vin there later. It's a 3,000 metre squared area dedicated to what it says is the culture of wine, a pretty impressive building on the banks of the river there. It includes exhibits on the history and culture of winemaking. They're hoping to attract 450,000 visitors a year. The building costs some €80 million to build.
Surely people just want to do tastings, don't they? I mean, right.
Sensible tastings.
I'm sure I'll go and have a look and find out if it's very interesting as well. Thanks very much, Stephen Carroll.